Coronation Street drops a spot to 5th place in my soap opera rankings for January 2023. After being in 4th place in December, Coronation Street drops despite General Hospital also dropping in my rankings. But what happened is Home and Away returned because they were on Christmas break. And surprisingly, Hollyoaks passed Coronation Street in my rankings. Now, when I look at the soap opera rankings, there's some gaps. We have the bottom 4 right now, the American soap operas, all at the bottom because the writing on all of them atrocious. And then there's a small gap, really only a small gap, when I have Emmerdale and Coronation Street, which is the bottom 2 right now of the non-American soap operas. And then there's a pretty small gap where Hollyoaks is concerned. And then there's a huge gap from my top 3, I think. A huge gap. The top 3 of my rankings are far above these other shows. But Coronation Street, which was at the top of my list for so long when I first started these rankings, I think what has happened is that the writing has really just been so shaky. I think the word would be shaky and all over the place. And it's just inconsistent because some weeks we get some, if not good soap opera, at least entertainment. And right now, Coronation Street's kind of a dark comedy, which I'll get to. But other weeks, it's so bad when we have to watch characters like Summer. I've been saying this for months now with Coronation Street. Having to watch Summer go through different turmoils every month. Every month, Summer's in some new kind of turmoil when she's just annoying about it. Ugh. Don't want it. I don't want it. Something else I didn't like with Coronation Street in January was Jacob leaving the show. Even though it was the actor's choice to leave the show, I thought Jacob really grew as a character from a one-note, unlikable drug dealer to a guy trying to change and be more rootable as a character, only for his dad to come back and Jacob to have to push Amy away and leave town. It was kind of a abrupt end to the character, so I wish we could have at least got a better story if the show could have known Jacob was leaving. You know, Coronation Street's really been pushing their younger characters over the past couple years, probably more than a couple years, and it's worked for the most part. But these last several months, we've had characters leave. First Kelly, she was a good character. Now Jacob, she became a good character. And we're kind of stuck with characters like Summer and Max, who also get a lot of screen time as younger characters, but can be too annoying to watch. Now, Max's story did get better. Like, a lot of it, like I've talked about, it's been the best story on the show, but the writing has been inconsistent. With the whole Spider situation, I think, was the most inconsistent part of the story. Just Spider being an undercover cop in the first place didn't fit the character and was just really odd. And he wasn't doing a very good job as an undercover cop. Anyway, but we saw the extremism story that they've been telling, where Griff has been able to basically gaslight Max into becoming the extremist way of thinking. And they've done a good job of using online and videos and social media to show how Max becomes a part of the problem. This happens in real life, where social media is a big tool for extremists to brainwash other people to believing, to be on one side or the other, to which one is better, which one's morally superior. While Griff is convincing Max that refugees, especially refugees from the East and the Middle East, are so dangerous and they're taking over England, Griff goes very extreme, sets a bomb that Alia has to drive away with in a van until it's safe. Alia's been going through it with this story, but I like to see more Alia. She's kind of become an action star, honestly, as a character on the show. She also got stabbed later in the story, which we'll get to. But Griff gets dealt with. Griff even kind of tries to convince Max, after all of this, to lie for him. Max doesn't do so, at least. But Max still seems to have these extremist ideas in his head, which fits the story. It seems as though Max thinks that these people are bad and trying to take over England, but he doesn't want to go as far as extremes as Griff was going to want to hurt them or kill them. But Max's rhetoric online and his videos have started to inspire other people, and that's how Alia ends up getting stabbed, even though they were going for Maria. They were trying to stab Maria, but Alia kind of saved Maria and got stabbed instead. But Alia's okay. I think the story it's gotten better, but I think the problem with it has been a lot of the characters in it are one note. Like Griff was a really one note racist and extremist, but I think it fit the story. But the thing that I don't like about the story is that the actual refugee, Darian, is also one note. Like, if this is a story about refugees, can you maybe develop the actual refugee more? He's just a one-note good guy who's very forgiving, even of Max. I think you could flesh him out as a character, because, soap operas, more so American soap operas than British soap operas, but British soap operas and Britain in general have a poor history with racism themselves. We see that with the royal family, for sake. I think it's kind of a disservice to act like you're doing this socially responsible storyline, but your actual refugee character is kind of a token. It's very one note, so they could really fix that. Now let's talk about the dark comedy on Coronation Street, and that is Stephen. I've talked about this last month, I think, how I still don't know what we're supposed to get from this story. It's a very odd and awkward story because the character Stephen is so odd and awkward, and some of that is the acting. But Stephen killed Leo accidentally because they were in a fight and he pushed him. Then he hid the body, and Teddy's been looking for his son, and Teddy got hit by a car when him and Stephen were having a confrontation, but he's okay and he's out and he's lost his memory for a while, but it starts to come back to him. And he starts accusing Stephen of the one that killed Leo. And of course, instead of going to the police, he confronts Stephen first, and when he's walking away, Stephen has to hit him over the head. And Stephen kills again. Stephen has killed again and needs to hide the body, puts him on this box top that goes on top of a car. He even gets some other characters to help him put that on the top of his car, and we get this really comedic thing. That's why I'm calling it a dark comedy, because Stephen is murdering people out of desperation and then having to hide the bodies comically because he puts the box that has a body on the car, and then his mother ends up taking the car without Stephen knowing, so Stephen's in a panic trying to get the car back. And I thought it was comical. I thought the storyline, I guess they're going for dark comedy because I don't know what else to take from that. I don't know, we've been making fun of Stephen as a character online for months now. I don't know how far in advance Coronation Street writes. I don't know if it's this far enough or not, because it would be comical if they're just taking what the fans are doing with the story online and turning it into a dark comedy, or if this was their intention all along, which is pretty cool if it was, because if not, the story was looking like it didn't have a lot of legs. But because it is now veering into dark comedy, it's more entertaining to watch. So if they're going to continue to take Stephen down this path where he has to keep murdering people out of desperation and hiding their bodies, then I guess why not do something different than any other show has mostly done, and turn it into a comical, dark comedy, I guess. So Coronation Street, it has its negatives, but it continues to be entertaining at times. So it's in fifth place. It's in my top five, although it could still get better. I would like to see the writing overall get to where it was when I first started these rankings a year and a half ago, but it's not quite there right now.